Welcome back to JR Pro Shop Vids, everyone. We got a little sequel here today, Axis Tilt. As you remember from last week, we did axis rotation, so this is a little build on top of that. So Barks, what is axis tilt?
So axis tilt is a measurement of how much of the ball a bowler will roll over. So for example, a bowler with 0 axis tilt will roll over the entire circumference of the bowling ball. A lot of these we would classify as full rollers. So for bowlers with a thumb hole, typically we'll see the ball roll between the fingers and thumb. As a side note, if you are a full roller, make sure your pro shop operator is laying the balls out specific for you. It's a big deal. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, bowlers with high axis tilt, over 40 degrees, you'll see their ball spin a lot like a top.
Or a Beyblade.
Or a Beyblade. So as opposed to a ball that rolls over the entire circumference, it's rolling on a very small portion of the ball. So for reference, Jungo here has an axis tilt of about 7 degrees, whereas mine is closer to 13 degrees. So for Jung at 7 degrees, it's pretty low tilt, and for me at 13 degrees, it's a little more typical. So we'll use Jung as a guinea pig again, and he'll do a couple of release drills. The first clip, we'll have Jung doing a regular release with his regular axis tilt, and the second one, he'll try and increase his axis tilt. So let's see what that looks like. All right, my question for you today, since we're talking about axis tilt, have you ever had your axis tilt measured? And if so, what is it? Let me know in the comments. So as an aside, we should mention it's much easier to manipulate your axis rotation versus your axis tilt. So don't be too concerned if you can't manipulate that quite as much as you're hoping to. And one more little side note, changing your axis rotation typically won't have any effect on your axis tilt.
So Barks, as pro shop operators, and someone comes into the shop and we don't know their stats, we take them out to the lane, right? We get their PEP, we get their axis rotation, axis tilt. Why do we care about axis tilt?
So much like we talked about with axis rotation, your axis tilt is going to dictate ball selection, layout, and the type of surface we put on it as well. It's also going to dictate which balls are going to be best to fill out an arsenal.
So Barks, the higher your axis tilt gets, what happens to the ball motion? And what kind of balls are we gravitating towards if we have a higher axis tilt?
So with high axis tilt, the ball has an easier time getting down the lane and typically doesn't hook nearly as sharp. It's kind of lazy sometimes. So the reason for this is with the high axis tilt player, the core doesn't have enough time on the lane to stabilize and really turn over. So for me, I would recommend stronger asymmetric bowling balls to high tilt players to get that ball turning over faster and changing direction more. And typically stronger, higher flaring layouts. So as a part of our JR Pro Shop crew, a good example of a high tilt player is a player like Brandon Riley. And our example for a low tilt player is someone like Jimu, a two-hander that tracks over a lot of the bowling ball. So if you take a look at Jimu's arsenal, a lot of the balls that we've selected are sort of in the mid-range and a lot of symmetrical pieces as well. This helps the ball get down the lane a little bit easier and controls the shape on the back end. So once again, we have 2 lanes with 2 different patterns. So Jung's going to throw some full approach shots on 44 feet titanium and 37 foot Broadway. So the first shot you're going to see is a regular release with 7 degrees of tilt. And the second shot, he's going to try and increase that tilt. And we'll see how high we get. And the reason why we're not going to try a low tilt shot, 7 degrees is pretty low to begin with. So it's hard to go lower than that, naturally. first shot on the right lane, 44 feet. You can see Jung throws a good one, 10 back. Not much we can say about that one. In the second shot, he changed his tilt to be a little bit higher. We ended up measuring it at 15 degrees, and that ball just sailed through the break point and missed the headwind to the right. So moving on to Broadway, 37 feet. First shot, 10 in the pit. Can't do much better than that. So the second shot, with 15 degrees, a little bit through the break point. It was a light swisher, but still a strike. So as you can see with the two patterns, the higher tilt is really amplified on the long pattern, and not so much on the short. So for all you bowlers out there, make sure you talk to your pro shop operator. It's really important to know what your axis tilt number is. You can measure it accurately to the degree in only a couple of minutes, but it's really going to help you with ball choice and shooting higher scores. All right, Jung, any final thoughts?
Yeah, don't be too worried if you can't manipulate your axis tilt. Even I had a tough time trying to get my axis tilt a little bit higher, and I really thought I was spinning it like crazy, and it only went from 7 degrees to 15. So don't be too concerned if you can't manipulate it. Don't worry about it. Axis rotation is the important one.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Stay tuned for our next video. Might be something to do with a purple urethane ball. We'll have to wait and see on that one.